Would you publish a smoking gun right now if you had one? Why not publish the docs you have, the emails from Sandberg? You showed us some docs. Why not show the ones you reference? Well, because Mark, that would take all the fun out of it. Right now, Pablo Torre is putting on an absolute masterclass. He is weaving a web, and Mark, you are caught in that web along with Steve Ballmer and Adam Silver and several of the NBA's chess pieces. So let's look at what's going on. On this next screen, I have a graphic that acts somewhat as a timeline, but what I want to illustrate here is that Pablo is very intentionally drip feeding content. And as you saw in Mark's tweet, he's frustrated with this drip, but this is on purpose. This is a part of the play that is unfolding in real time in front of us. Pablo is gifting this to us. This is this is not just investigative journalism that we have not seen the likes of before. This is something else entirely. We're also getting entertainment. We're getting a thriller that's unfolding right in front of us over the course of the past few weeks. So on this graphic, we start off with actually I want to point out one screenshot to you, and it's in the very left-hand side on the center, and there's a parentheses that I really want to emphasize because I think that will help provide context for everything that Pablo is doing. Pablo writes, and not just because it's an exclusive investigation, which took 7 months. And that last part is in parentheses. That's what's very important to keep in mind. That Pablo has very much orchestrated this in such a way. Now, there are variables that are playing out that Pablo may or may not have anticipated, but he's making them a part of the story that he is showing us. So, this is very intentional. Pablo knows exactly what he's doing, and it's working out, I'm sure, very close to exactly the way he wants to. So that is the start. That is the initial post where Pablo announces what is about the investigative journalism that he's about to show us, and that's from Pablo.show. So on this first section I have here, we have the screenshot for the initial podcast, and the title is "Exclusive: The Clippers, the Massive Fraud, and Kawhi's Secret $28 million job." And then, so one of the key takeaways here, and this is a very rudimentary graphic, but these are the key takeaways. One of the key takeaways is that here we had a no show, nothing. Kawhi was obligated to do nothing, $28 million endorsement deal that was larger than the endorsement deals of several A-list celebrities combined. And then later it was revealed that there was $20 million more that was a part of this as a part of stock options from Aspiration to Kawhi. So we have the initial release, and then we have the reaction. And the reaction, you can tell, the reaction came for the players, especially Steve Ballmer and the Clippers. The reaction was too soon. I'm sure if they had to go back, they would not have this immediate reaction, but that's part of the beauty. Pablo didn't release everything all at once. He released just enough to elicit the reaction. So on this next section, we have here we have Steve Ballmer interviewing with ESPN's Ramon Shelburne, and he says, Pablo's podcast, I don't know anything about the court documents on this. I haven't seen them, and I don't know. The speculation is what it is. They conned me. I made an investment in these guys. We also have a press release from the Clippers, and originally it reads, neither Mr. Ballmer nor the Clippers circumvented the salary cap or engaged in any misconduct related to Aspiration. Any contrary assertion is provably false. And then I note that because later we have a Clippers statement that is published by Shams Charania on Twitter, and it leaves out the provably false part. So here we start to see where things begin to deteriorate from the players in this game, and the players being those who are reacting to Pablo's investigative journalism. All right, and then we also have Mark Cuban actually, we'll get to this in a moment. So on this next section, we have Mark Cuban, where he joins Pablo Torre on his podcast, and this is impromptu because this was Mark's reaction. Pablo invited him on the show. Mark joined. So now we get a bonus time. This is really a bonus podcast where Pablo asks Mark questions and then Mark is answering. And so what was unknown was that we'd have Mark taking this um, team bomber approach to where he says that he doesn't care one way or the other. He says that he doesn't have a dog in the race. And he actually says that he hopes Steve Ballmer is cheating. But that's not how he acts. He acts very much as the biggest defender of Steve Ballmer. In fact, the unparalleled, not even close to it. Nobody is as close to defending Steve Ballmer as much as Mark Cuban is. And in a way, he could be doing. He actually is doing Steve. Again, maybe he's not, because maybe, just maybe, there's another part of this where Mark is one of those other chess pieces that was intentionally placed to be the very public defense of Steve Ballmer. So here we have Mark stating that he would have invested more money if this was going to come out. So Mark getting at that he would have paid Aspiration more to make sure that Kawhi was paid and that this doesn't come to be public knowledge. Of course, many other things were a part of this podcast, including Mark's repeated use of the dumb defense, which I addressed in another video that I will link to below. But the dumb defense creating a false equivalency that the Clippers had to be dumb to circumvent the salary cap. No, they were being risky to circumvent the salary cap. There's also a false dichotomy there. I get to it in a separate video. But this was a very much a milestone video for Pablo, and one that I don't think he could have anticipated anything better. All right, so now we move on to this next slot. It's the fourth slot, and we have Adam Silver reacting at the NBA Board of Governors press conference. And so this took place a few days later on September 10th. So I think that's a week after, maybe 8 days after the initial release. And then so Adam Silver has been privy to all of this information that has come beforehand. And he states that he's never heard of Aspiration before or anything around a Kawhi endorsement, a Kawhi endorsement deal, or any type of engagement with the Los Angeles Clippers. All right, so that happens. And then we have another podcast that's released by Pablo Torre. He is drip feeding this content, and it is masterful. This is better than anything you could find on Netflix. So now we have a story where the basic takeaway is that Dennis Wong, the 1% owner of the Clippers, and Steve Ballmer's very much a friend and connected partner, Dennis Wong invests $2 million into Aspiration, and it just so happened to coincide with a $1.75 million payout to Kawhi Leonard. And then we have Mark Cuban showing up on the Road Trippin' with Richard Jefferson podcast. And Mark Cuban states that this could be a bridge loan. All right. And then we also have I think this was a few days later, we have Adam Silver at the Front Office Sports Tuned In Summit. And Adam Silver then walks back his original statement that he'd never heard of Aspiration before. He states, no, I'd heard of it, just not in that context. Well, so Adam Silver is now caught in a lie, and he's now become a part of the story. All right, so we continue on with this next section, and this just happened today. So as I said, this is still ongoing. This is still unfolding right in front of us, and it is very much it is very entertaining. And again, this is better than anything you could watch, you could find on Netflix. So here we have the latest podcast episode exclusive. Kawhi and Aspiration needed cash, and then Ballmer and the Clippers. And then so basically the takeaway from this podcast is the Clippers purchased carbon credits, and their total all-in amount was $118. So the Clippers paid in total, in aggregate, $118 million to Aspiration. And this actually lines up with what Mark Cuban said. Remember when I talked about earlier, he would have invested more money, he would have paid Aspiration more money. Well, here we can see that money flowing in. And so Pablo talks all about it in this podcast. I have another screenshot from the podcast where it shows all of the Clippers and ownership payments to Aspiration. And so what also has just happened, this is a few hours ago. We have a Clippers press release, and then we have a Mark Cuban string of tweets, uh, some like really nonsensical when you read them. So let's actually look at this right now. Let's first look at the Clippers statement. So this is a new Clippers statement. We have this is from Joey Lynn, is a Clippers beat reporter, I think. Steve and his family are focused on sustainability, which is why Intuit Dome was designed to be a carbon neutral building from its inception and to achieve lead zero status over time. I don't know what that is, but I'll say lead status. Our development credits, our development agreements for the arena, and then it just goes on. So we have the Clippers now reacting to yet another Pablo drip feed, and let's go to Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban just with this long, convoluted answer. And what's funny is he starts out with Pablo, glad I could help! Exclamation point. Will you now admit that you and your sources, who said it was common knowledge that $50 million was for cap circumvention, were incorrect, and the Wong 2 million and 10 million weren't directed to Kawhi Leonard, and you focus too much on the dates. And so he continues on. Mark Cuban is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this. And what's one other video I have to make is what's going to happen after from Mark Cuban after this. Mark Cuban is so wrong and he refuses to admit it. And it's strange because he's he has been the one that has inserted himself into this conversation, and he has really been the central figure in the Ballmer defense, labeling himself as Team Ballmer. And so it's led to speculation as to why Mark Cuban, what are you even doing right now? You've chosen the wrong side. Now you're spending all of this time. He has spent so much time writing about this, and he's making himself look absolutely ridiculous with these. It's funny because he said that Pablo is being circular. Mark Cuban is being circular. This is Mark Cuban's, all of his arguments just keep circling back and forth, and it's nonsensical at this point. And so what has happened is Mark Cuban has pointed out things to which Pablo has addressed, and then Mark Cuban turns his attention to something else. And Mark Cuban is actually getting caught in his own logic. So he's tripped himself up a few times. Of course, Mark Cuban would not admit that, and I think there's a degree of arrogance that that won't let Mark Cuban acknowledge that Pablo is right. Although I have seen him start to weaken on his stance and make some if statements. Well, if this happened, etc. But the whole Mark Cuban defense is it's just really bad. It reflects really poorly upon Mark Cuban, and I think what may have initially started out as a flippant defense of Steve Ballmer, prompted or not prompted, is now turning into something that is, it's possibly legacy defining for Mark Cuban. He has gone on the wrong path. He continues to do so. And I think what is especially discrediting is he refuses to acknowledge, for the most part, he refuses to acknowledge any of the very tangible and compelling evidence that Pablo Torre has presented. So he's inserted himself into the conversation. Now he's acting as Ballmer's proxy defense, and it's falling apart right in front of our eyes. And Pablo Torre has seamlessly made Mark Cuban a part of this story and just continued to drip feed content. And we'll see how much further this goes along. But this wasn't, and I think at one point recently, Pablo said that, he says that I followed Mark Cuban's advice. And here we have Mark Cuban saying that, Pablo, glad I could help. And when I say follow advice on where to look. You have to know that Pablo Torre has known all along what he's doing. Pablo Torre is putting on a masterclass, and it's for the entertainment of us all.